So I just watched this Paul Vanderklay video titled Objective Morality, Jordan Peterson's Sacrament is Meaning. And there were so many things that were interesting in the video, and I thought about writing them all down and leaving a comment, but I think maybe just making a video comment instead would be better, because there's just a little bit too much to write in a YouTube comment, I think. What I want to focus on is something he's saying right here near the end. I think I've time-stamped it. It's 1 hour and 50 minutes into this video, and he's saying here, embody the Tao. You can't just talk about it. You have to live it. And this is something that I'm getting to in a lot of different ways in my Jordan Peterson Paradox video series and in my new series, the True Lies series. And we're seeing this also in the Mo Meaning Mondays, Maps of Meaning Mondays, now that I'm getting into Chapter 2 also. And so I'm going to comment on that, and the whole idea of meaning is Jordan Peterson's sacrament. I think, that's an important idea, so I just want to emphasize that right at the start. And I just want to say that, Jordan Peterson is approaching the world as a doctor or a healer, and he speaks to the illness to treat the problem at hand. And so I've mentioned this before. A lot of people think that Jordan Peterson sort of is two-faced, that he'll be in front of one crowd and speak to them in one way, and then in front of another crowd he'll talk to them about something else, perhaps in opposition to that. But this is about addressing the problem at hand. So that meaning is his go-to solution, on, like, say, his 12 Rules tour, speaks to our lack of it. This goes back in many ways to William Blake, which, if you're familiar with my channel, I like to talk about William Blake a lot. And he was railing against the seeds he saw planted by Newton and Locke and Bacon, because he saw what was going to come from it. He saw this lack of meaning coming, over 150 years ago. Just as Jordan rails against, the seeds planted in the compelled speech bill in Canada. Sort of the similar thing. Both of these men, William Blake and Jordan Peterson, have a sort of clear vision, and in that sense, a sort of prophetic vision of what may happen in the future. You need meaning because we are enveloped in a sort of dissociated, egoistic, disembodied state. And this is a state of being that William Blake might relate to the state of Satan. And that sounds a little hyperbolic, but it's something that I'm going to develop in the next video or two in my True Lies series. I don't want to get into it here, but just something to think about. This is, as McGilchrist might note, a characteristic of left hemisphere personality, and this is something that Jordan talked about with the Israeli journalist that Paul Vanderklay cited in this video, that Satan is given a whole personality. Evil is given a personality in Satan because it's so dynamic and it's so dependent on context and so forth. And this is something that McGilchrist talks a lot about in his book, The Master and His Emissary, not particularly about Satan, but about the characteristic of left hemisphere personality. Its disposition towards the world is different than your right hemisphere. And so I think a lot of people might still be confused about what that really means. And again, this is something I'm diving into in my True Lies series and the sickness of the modern mind. So just as our brains form thoughts, the thoughts in turn shape our brains. And this is a back and forth which is really cool and really interesting. So we shape our culture, and our cultures shape us. And this, to a shocking degree, is true. And this is also a battle that Jordan Peterson is having with a lot of people. To what degree does culture shape who we are? The possibly hyper-functioning left hemisphere in the great minds, like, let's say, Descartes. McGilchrist theorizes he might have been schizophrenic. He certainly shows a lot of signs of it from historical accounting of what he was like. So these minds shaped our civilization, they shaped our culture, and so from the scientific revolution onwards, that ended up stimulating that kind of personality in all of us, even though we do not exhibit a sort of hyper-functioning left hemisphere, when we're born. We weren't born with the sort of makeup of the mind like these great minds, but that sort of is how our culture is shaping us. And to the extent where, in my opinion, people who are religious apologists, they play a left hemisphere game of logic, math, and material evidence instead of what should be a more religious thing, a more right hemisphere game of love, forgiveness, and relatedness to your fellow man. And so it's as if truth is reducible to matter, even for the religious types. It's reducible to history, to an event. What truth is that and more. And I think Vanderklay often says it's something that goes all the way down, right? So it is Jesus, the historical man, the person, but it's also Christ, the Messiah figure, the imaginative Savior. And I'm saying imaginative, and this is in a sense that draws on William Blake. Again, I'm developing this more for people who are not familiar with it in the True Lies series. Or if you want to look at my Fearful Symmetry series, go ahead. So we're in a state of hyper-functioning left hemisphere type of personality, but what about all the feels from the left and the political left and the whole facts don't care about your feelings from Ben Shapiro on the right? All of this is also left hemisphere personality, as it's all feelings of anger and judgment, not love and forgiveness and understanding. It's about knowing, not understanding. These are hemispherical differences in personality and the way you're disposed towards the world. They know they're right. They know they are right. We need to be unified and rebalanced to feel meaning instead of indignation. This is what Dr. Jordan Peterson is all about. The doctor will see you now. To love and forgive, this is Jesus, the Christ in us. This is the call from God, the human God, who calls us by our name and who told us His. This is a God we have a relationship with, not a list of rules we live by. This is imaginative, creative love and freedom found at the very bottom of reality, through and through, all the way up to the human being. I was just listening to Adam Friended and the Distributists talking about morality. I sort of got home intending to make this video, and then I saw that he was live, so I thought I'd give it a listen. And what came up was something very interesting that related to this, that the Distributist said, well, Jesus Christ is a supremely complex archetype. Yes, exactly. He is not a list of rules that we can now describe to someone who's curious. He's a person. In fact, he's the person God, the personal God, who you have a relationship with. And it's through that relationship that you start to know and understand and love and forgive and all of that kind of thing. Jordan often emphasizes that instead of ideological possession, which would be the simplified Jesus Christ, let's say, that the Distributist mentioned, the simplified Jesus, the simplified anything, is what is ideological and drives ideological possession. Jordan wants us to move to the archetypes which are more fully reflective of reality. This is something, again, I expand more upon in True Lies. They more fully reflect reality, and those are found in religion. And Jordan makes a good case as to why they're found in religion. Jordan is at the sort of, he emphasizes the individual because I guess, again, he's addressing the problem at hand. So he's emphasizing the individual. This is a sort of Greek notion, but I believe Jordan will eventually get to the personal. And this is going to be a sort of Jewish Christian notion of the personal God and the Christian God and the personhood of being instead of the individual of being. The individual is sort of atomistic. It's the Greek atom. It's the thing that cannot be divided anymore, which is useful, and we need to know that. But we also need to know the person. It's more about the human being. Reading the Bible is one way people want to point to how do you know Jesus Christ. It's a written word. This is also, in my opinion, a little bit left hemispheric versus the imaginative word, which is Christ in us, and among other things. I don't want to simplify it that much, but I want to make this video kind of short. So the imaginative word would be Christ in us. It's relatedness. It's within our relationships. It's experiential knowledge. It's implicit knowledge. And this sort of goes to Paul Vanderklay talking about, well, if you want to be like certain Christians, go to their church and you will become like them. If you want to become like anybody, hang around them long enough and you'll sort of start to become like them. This is how I think it's one way to learn about Christ is, of course, through the written word. That's your left hemisphere, let's say left hemispheric. But the sort of other way, you also must be part of a community. You must be part of finding Christ in others and in yourself. And through that relatedness, you will also know God. So you can't have one without the other. A lot of times online you'll run into these people who they have their Bibles in hand and they know everything, and they know everything that they know, and they know nothing about what they don't know, and they'll quote Bible passages at you left and right, but they will have no connection to community. And so they're not finding Christ in anybody. They're just looking down at a piece of paper and reading words. And from my experience, you never feel like you're relating to Christ when you're interacting with them. So that's what I wanted to emphasize in this little commentary on this video. Not a commentary on the video, but these are pretty much the comments I would have written down for YouTube, and I just thought it was a little bit much to just write out for a YouTube comment. My dog, if you can hear my dog in the background, I'm not going to edit that out. He wants to give his opinion as well. And I'd like to just end on a very interesting poem that I think is very fitting. After one moment when I bowed my head, and the whole world turned over and came upright, and I came out where the old road shone white, I walked the ways and heard what all men said, forests of tongues, like autumn leaves unshed, being not unlovable but strange and light, old riddles and new creeds, not in despite but softly as men smile about the dead. The sages have 100 maps to give that trace their crawling cosmos like a tree. They rattle reason out through many a sieve that stores the sand and lets the gold go free. And all these things are less than dust to me, because my name is Lazarus, and I live.